This video, as you may suspect, is sponsored by my absolute favorite underwear company, Sheath. Sheath underwear. We'll get to that. Stick around to the end to hear what you know's coming. Let's talk about this very scary article I read in the Washington Post today. I've talked for years now about the sinister intention of Donald Trump to end democracy. I've talked about how in the run-up to the 2020 election, he was saying it's going to be rigged. If I lose, it's rigged. No evidence. They never presented anything. Even now, years later, after the win of Joe Biden, the 7 million plus more votes, we've heard phone calls of Donald Trump calling the Secretary of State of Georgia. Look, all I need you to do is find me 11,780 votes. That's all I need, and then I will have won that state. Find the votes, he said. So we know. We know that when they say it's rigged, all they mean is their ideas aren't resonating with the American people. People aren't voting for them, so they have to cry foul and act like people cheated when they can provide no evidence of it. If there was evidence of it, many of us would be screaming, this is wrong. This is not democratic. Listen, if the majority of the country believed the things the Republican Party believed and that's the way they voted, that would be fair and square. But that's not the case. And it hasn't been for decades. The last time a Republican president won the popular vote, I think, was George W. Bush after 9/11. But right now, Donald Trump's partners with Project 2025 are calling it that it's rigged, that they're under no circumstance will this election be fair. I'm going to read this headline, share this video, like this video, listen to every word that I'm getting ready to read. I'm not even reading a fraction of the article because it's a long one. It's in depth. This is important. People need to know that they want some conspiracy to override the brains of Americans, convincing them that something is afoot when it's not, and they can provide no evidence of it. All it does is serve to get Donald Trump reelected so they can implement their fascist policies using Project 2025 and others. Here's the headline from the Washington Post. Trump allies at Heritage declare 2024 election illegitimate in advance. A quote-unquote war game presented at the Right Wing Foundation imagined far-fetched scenarios for election interference to justify preemptive measures. Preemptive measures, not reactive, not after the fact. Oh, now we see that there's fraud. We're talking about preemptive measures. Barbara Streisand kidnapped by Hamas. Antifa BLM protesters taking over a migrant detention facility. The FBI arresting Donald Trump 2 days after winning the election. These were among the far-fetched scenarios imagined by a simulation of threats to the 2024 election showcased on Thursday by the Right Wing Heritage Foundation. The presentation delivered at the foundation's Washington headquarters stated as a given that the Biden administration was already engaged in a sweeping conspiracy to use multiple forms of federal power to influence the presidential election. It did not supply any evidence. Now, I want you to listen to this quote from this man, Mike Howell, this thumb with ears, this dildo with hair atop of it. Mike Howell said this: as things stand right now, there's a 0% chance of a free and fair election, said Mike Howell, executive director of Heritage's Oversight Project. Quote, he continued, I'm formally accusing the Biden administration of creating the conditions that most reasonable policymakers and officials cannot, in good conscience, certify an election. What he means, what Mike Howell is saying there, and who he's categorizing as reasonable policymakers, are people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, are Jim Jordan. Those to him are reasonable policymakers. The report said, A key finding from their simulation was that the sitting president is the greatest danger to the peaceful transition of power, with no mention of Trump's effort to overturn his 2020 loss to keep himself in office. Instead, it offered that conclusion as justification for doubting the outcome of the 2024 election and trying to reject anything other than a Trump victory. Trump himself has repeatedly declined to say he will accept the results or rule out a violent response. He has told his supporters that he can only lose through cheating. This is insanity to find. This is conspiracy theory. This is beyond Alex Jones nuttery. And it's coming from a once ostensibly respected think tank in the Heritage Foundation. Howell, the dildo with ears, said that the exercise would lead Heritage to file more litigation over election procedures. He also said it should help the public resist psychological operations that he claimed were used in 2020 and are being used again. That seems totally reasonable, that there are psychological operations. The frogs, the water's turning the frogs gay, says Mike Howell / Alex Jones. He didn't say who supposedly ran the operations. Quote, "The upshot is that we will see a contested election, the likes of which we've never seen." That, my friends, is what he calls the upshot. That we will see a contested election months before it's even taken place. These people are dead set on undermining American democracy. Once again, that quote, and this is from Adam Elwinger, a rhetoric professor at the University of Houston downtown who helped lead the simulation. He said, the upshot is, again, the positive thing about this is that we will see a contested election, the likes of which we've never seen. He also said, if we see the kind of manipulations that we saw in 2020, there were none. We didn't see any manipulations. All of these 60 plus cases have been thrown out of court, summarily dismissed, laughed out of court. If we see the manipulations that we didn't see in 2020, I wonder if average Americans who are supporters of the president, Donald Trump, he means, will swallow that so easily as they did in 2020. They have to find the nuttiest nuts and the goofiest goofs to run away with these types of conspiracies. The simulation, known as the 2024 Transition Integrity Project, is technically independent of the Heritage Foundation, but included multiple Heritage employees. The full list of participants was withheld, of course, which Howell said was for their safety. Another participant present on Thursday was Josh Fendley, who was until recently the Republican National Committee's Director of Election Integrity Operations. Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts spoke at the end of the event. This is a Heritage Foundation event. They like to give themselves plausible deniability, but we know, us actual reasonable people, know what's going on. The Heritage Foundation, a longtime bastion of conservative orthodoxy that has more recently reinvented itself for the Trump era, has become a lightning rod in the campaign because of its role in convening Project 2025. That project published detailed policy proposals for every federal agency ready for the next Republican administration to implement. Some of the most controversial ideas, including banning abortion medication, facilitating White House involvement in law enforcement, and rolling back legal protections for LGBTQ Americans. Look, it is self-evident that we are in a crisis moment in American history, that democracy is literally under threat. The Constitution they wave around and claim to revere and protect and support and defend is literally under attack from them. And now they're saying that the election is rigged before it's even taken place, that their simulations that involved Hamas kidnapping Barbara Streisand prove it. The wild conspiracies that they've concocted and are thinking about constantly prove that it's rigged. Dangerous times. I'd love to know what you think. You can comment below. You can also call, leave me a voicemail. Now that I'm back, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me, please. I accept those as well. Daily at Dollemore.com. Please consider supporting the work. You can become a channel member below. You can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Tell someone about this article or share this video with them. Please. It is important, and it goes far beyond whether or not you share this particular video about this. If that's not your style, read and share this Washington Post article. It will be linked below. Another way to support is to hear me talk a little bit about the kind of underwear that I wear. Check out this very brief ad from today's sponsor, Sheath Underwear. We are once again faced with a pivotal year. And while we don't have control over everything, we as individuals can affect real change. Am I talking about voting? Sure, of course I am. But I'm also obviously talking about underwear. In a world so rich with options, why would we ever settle for second-rate skivvies? My 2024 pick for Department of the Interior is Sheath underwear. Sheath is the only underwear with a dual pouch system scientifically designed to keep your president separated from his cabinet, if you catch my drift. Come on, man. Invented by a U.S. Army veteran while serving a tour in Iraq, the idea from Sheath arose from discomfort in harsh environments. As a former Marine stationed in that part of the world, I get the inspiration. I wear sheaths every day. They're the only boxers that can agreeably accommodate my tree trunk thighs while also keeping my jewels carefully compartmentalized. While I'm not the only person choosing them, sheaths are recommended by multiple doctors and urologists and have over 20,000 five-star reviews. It's time to democratize your drawers. Head to sheathunderwear.com/Dollemore right now and score 20% off right away. I personally am an airflow mesh guy, but Sheath has tons of excellent styles and designs. And once you pick, Sheath will land them on your doorstep near instantly thanks to blindingly fast shipping and amazing customer service. Additionally, your purchase actually does affect positive change. Sheath supports multiple charities like Socks for Soldiers and Doctors Without Borders, so you're making positive choices for the world too. Upgrade your undergarments. Score 20% off right now when you head to sheathunderwear.com/Dollemore. Real change starts with you and your package.